Welcome to the Pick Up the Flow show. I'm Selwa, and today my guest is Baby Leo. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to have you back.
It feels good to be back in here, back in New York. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Before we start the interview, can you introduce yourself for those who may not be familiar?
I'm Baby Leo. I DJ as Baby Leo. I'm a co-founder of a music festival called Dripping, which is coming up this summer. And it's an event series. And I'm a designer. I design spaces, spatial designer, mostly landscapes, outdoor spaces. I have a lot of experience in playground design and making those projects reality. So I've spent a lot of time on construction sites. And I've recently embarked on my own construction project, building my own house, which is quite an endeavor. And I'm sure we'll get into it. I have a background in performance and touring as a member of a band throughout most of my adolescence and into early adulthood. And each thing has kind of led me on to the next. As disparate as my endeavors seem sometimes, I find a lot of connection between being all these different things. Yeah.
And so you grew up in San Francisco.
I grew up in San Francisco, and I relocated to San Francisco as well at the end of last year. So I'm about 5 months into my return home. And in between then, I moved to New York in 2009, spent about 14 years here.
Wow.
With a short break when I went to graduate school.
So how was your time in SF, growing up? What
Blessed.
Well,
yeah, it was so cool to grow up in San Francisco in the late 80s and 90s. I'm 37 years old. I have a very kind of engaged and interesting family that are also artists and creators and makers and social people who kind of bring the world around them. So they raised me in a way that was full of interest, I would say, and kind of shaped me into someone that is curious and willing to try things. And San Francisco is a very cool place to evolve into who I am. I lived there till I was 23 and moved kind of just before the tech world sort of really tightened its stranglehold on the city for the latest, version of that. And so I never really experienced the version of San Francisco that I think a lot of is in people's mind's eye of this kind of techie takeover. I was in New York during that time, and when I visit home, it feels very similar to how I remember it. And now I'm back living in my childhood home with my family, with my parents and my partner, which is pretty interesting. Yeah. Going objectively very well, and super happy about it, but it's a trip to move back home, and it's an interesting time to be in San Francisco too. I feel like San Francisco has this opportunity a lot of people go that have gone there throughout history to find themselves or reinvent themselves or pursue something different than what they have. And I feel like I'm doing that in a way right now. And it feels very fitting there. I feel supported there. I feel there's a lot of resources for me there. Pretty excited about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really
And no one
exciting.
ever says that. Everyone's always like, why did you move here?
Yeah, it's so true. But is it did you have any favorite memories when you were in San Francisco growing up? This?
My memories are varied. I mean, it's hard to pull out one notable memory in life, but I don't want to talk about all the bad things that I did. That's a hard one for me to answer. I mean, I think San Francisco as a child is so unique because it's like, at least during that time, was a cultural generator of so many interesting new ideas within culture at large. So arts, music, technology, economics, all these sorts of things, sort of like many of them are pioneered in new ways there. And so like the types of summer camps or programs or things that I did as a kid felt very like exciting in ways that maybe are different than the rest of the country. I think, I started becoming deeply engaged in like underground music as a really young kid there. So like when I was like 10, 11 years old, I started going to punk shows there, and like that has just kind of like evolved over time to where I'm at now, like a lifetime spent in the musical underground and DIY spaces, and playing music myself, and participating, supporting the scene, that sort of thing. It was a great place for me to do that, and has like laid the groundwork for everything I'm doing now.
Yeah, actually, at 14, you helped start Animosity. It's death metal or deathcore?
I don't know what people call the band deathcore. It was like sort of a new term at the time. It's considered to be, this band Animosity that I started is considered to be one of the first bands that did that sound. I did start the band, my first year of high school and 14 years old. And then we had about 9 years together, number of albums. I probably did about 50 US tours, traveled the world with the band. And it continues to be something that is impactful for people and like resonates with, listeners old and new, which is quite surprising to me, but it feels good. It feels like we did it right, and did it in a way that is not based in, there's so much fast-paced things in music where like bands get popular, DJs get popular or whatever, and then like they're gone right away. And so it's nice to feel like a legacy attached to something that has meaning for people, beyond just like continuing to sell things or have a brand that's out there. It feels like there's a connection that's still strong to people.
Yeah, and even like I was researching your band, and then I found the MySpace page, and just seeing that like artifact from like that era.
It's still like you're able to find it still.
Yeah, and
cool.
You have so many like, I don't know if it was like followers or subscribers, like the...
Yeah.
And it's really inspiring to see that like still young people are, influenced by what you did, and it's...
Yeah, because there's not really like, I don't know about the... We were certainly of the MySpace era, and that was like the online hub for all of our activity. And honestly, it was such a great platform because like it kind of had everything. It had, you could share music, videos, sell stuff, photos, communication, tour dates. It was just like, it worked really well.
Yeah.
And then once that kind of like became superseded by the other platforms, actually we never like continued down that road. So the band never like was on Facebook or the rest of these things. We don't have an Instagram profile, and it's not an active band, so we're not pursuing these things, but there's not really like a strong artifact online of the band. Like there's no real good archive of the kind of stuff that we did. And I certainly have not been able to, or interested to get that together.
Like, would you want to do something like that, or in the future?
I mean, I think it'd be interesting. You always, when you create stuff, like regret not archiving things properly and not like having access to the work that you've done. And in some ways I'm sort of just like happy with it being in the collective memory of people that experienced it. But it would be cool.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's like also to just have this. It's like your book collection, like your library. Just have things that like you can look at when you're like 80, or just. But yeah, I'm really curious about your experience touring at such a young age. Were other like members of the band young or?
Yeah, we were all pretty much the same age. Like,
oh wow,
there was one person in the band who's a year older than me, and he had a driver's license before any of us did. So he was like the plug to get us to the shows. And
whoa.
Before that, like my brother or my parents and shit would take us to these shows. But the first time we went on tour, I was 16, had my driver's license. It was just so sick. Like I was fully breathing and living like this dream of being in this community, contributing music, contributing like energy, seeing the bands that I wanted to see, like wearing the uniform, just like being about it. And there was nothing else I wanted to do really. Like I didn't feel like I was like super one-dimensional, but like that was my goal, to like push the band and release music and travel playing the music. And like it just kind of worked because I think it worked for a couple reasons. Like one, the players in the band were like virtuosically good, especially for young kids. And so like typically there was some novelty to the band being like high school kids playing with all these grown men. And, we'd have like a room full of like older people like wrapped in our palm. So that was very exciting. And then also just like we gave ourselves fully to it. Like it was an expressive band. So like the lyrics, the imagery and all of that was very like earnestly coming mostly from me. And I think that has to do also with the legacy of like people feeling a connection to it, because it came from a real place,
I have this little video that I can play. So when was this?
I was 15 years old in this video.
Nice.
This very grainy video. This is at a spot in Berkeley, California called the Gilman Street Project. It's kind of like the epicenter for West Coast or Northern California punk stuff. And continues to be like a great community center and place for bands to come through. I was there recently because this song is now being played by like a new band that has emerged in this scene, and they're covering the song. They recorded, put it on the record. Shout out to Tsunami. And I went and saw them play it in the same place. Whoa. And I got up and sang it with them. It's the first time I like held a microphone in a long time. But it's a trip. Whoa. It's a trip, like stepping back into that. Like all of this was like a very raw expression of like, as a teenager being super angsty and like distrustful of like the world systems of capitalism and imperialism. And like it was a pretty the themes of the band were very much like in line with my beliefs today in many ways. But it was this outlet that I don't really have right now for just sort of like screaming at like what is moving me. Also on a personal level, there was like I went through some pretty crazy stuff as a teenager with like my girlfriend was killed, and this was quite like an emotional release for me in terms of kind of explaining that to myself and writing, which I don't really do much of anymore, but it's a very direct creative outlet that I think is like so cool to have had. I feel like it was very helpful for my development to be able to like put how I feel into the world directly.
Yeah, especially at a young age, because I feel like it kind of like it freed you in a way, no?
Definitely.
Like, you know,
and I was celebrated
yeah.
for it, which feels good. Like people loved it. And
Yeah,
so it was like,
because they would
sick.
relate to what you. That's why like it was so interesting to me to read some of your lyrics, because they're poetry. You know, was it something that you were interested in? Like, you know, the way. Did you have like, what was your method like when you would write lyrics? Like, how would you start?
Usually I would write to the music, and it's kind of like writing you know, I'm not quite sure how this stuff came to me, like songs about like, you know, materialism or like overconsumption or like a lot of stuff about like the war in Iraq and like the outbreak of like you know, the new age of American imperialism in the Middle East and stuff. I was coming of age during like the Bush era and was very like fired up about it. So like those things would just sort of like be swirling around my brain, and I'd just sit down and write to the music. I don't know. Wow. But I feel like it stands up in a way that I'm surprised by, because like I was into dumb shit, and like I was around a lot of people who were into really dumb shit. And I'm glad that it doesn't feel that way when I look back, but I don't exactly know what the process of doing it. It just kind of came out of me. And I'm not like particularly into poetry currently, but I've kind of grown up around it. Like my parents are both really into poetry and like would bring me to poetry readings, and that's kind of like a large part of their community, particularly my mom. We have like a poetry component to this year's festival, which is kind of exciting for me. And I think that will be like very much a highlight of the weekend coming up. Also like a rare occurrence at a rave. So
yeah,
just finding ways to include the mind and words in what we do.
Yeah, and so how was your touring experience? Because you toured all around the US and the world. Like, was it, especially at like such a young age, do you feel like it kind of made you grow up like faster?
Yes and no. Like, I think had I not done that, for example, maybe I would be in a different place. Like, had I gone to college and like out of high school and pursued a career, I would have like grown up faster in a way that in a certain way. But like, yeah, I was independent from a young age, like in foreign places, which was very cool. You know, when you're on tour, you have one objective, which is just to get to the venue. Yeah. And then once you're there, it's like, it's all good. You can do whatever you want. And it's super thrilling to connect with like people who are living that same life. Not just like the fans, but like mostly there's like a whole community of bands that just live their lives in a van on the road. And like, it doesn't matter if you go to sleep with some other guy's like ass like 2 inches from your face. It's just you have to get where you're going, and you're sleeping in a van or on someone's floor or whatever. And I did that for many years. And I really loved it. I don't miss doing it though. I don't, there's not a part of me that wants to like get back on the road in that way. Like I said, when I was really young, that was the goal. And once it started happening, and then it was happening again and again and again, it started to feel like I started to find a feeling of satisfaction when I was like, all right, the only thing left to do here is like get more money from doing this, which was not like a strong motivator as someone in my early 20s. I was kind of like, I don't really care to do things for that reason. So I wanted to do other stuff. And that's pretty much when it ended.
Yeah. In an interview, you said, I didn't go to college after high school, and you didn't get a job, but you moved on mentally and spiritually. so you came to New York and began DJing because you like performing and putting music out in the world, but it didn't have that like pressure of like, you know, putting your whole because I feel like what you like being in a band is taxing on the body because you have to perform.
Especially this sort of thing.
Yeah. How did you like? Can you talk about the period when you moved on?
Yeah. I mean, when I say in that quote that you're quoting, like I had kind of moved on mentally and spiritually. It is like a insular, inward facing world, right? Like you don't in that community of extreme music. It's like that's what matters, and the other stuff out in the world is like fuck it, I don't care, or there's like open hostility towards other things. So, I was a young person. I was interested in being in other types of spaces, like more diverse spaces with women, like that scene is more diverse now. And like, but at the time it was like, you'd be in a room full of like young men only. And I just like, my musical interests were changing. I had found a lot of personal healing through the touring and, the type of expression that we're talking about from a place that I was not in a very good place for some of those years following what had happened. So once I kind of like emerged from that, I was like closing this book and like excited to go on to the next. So when that happened, it just kind of like I removed myself. I moved to New York. I got into school. I went to the new school. You also went to the new school.
Yeah.
So that was in 2009.
Nice.
I did like a environmental studies
Damn,
program.
I was there.
Yeah.
Damn, that was at the same time.
I actually was like listening to one of your other interviews with Cece, and I was like, okay, you guys were both there when I was there.
Yeah. That's cool.
But yeah, so I did that. I was very inspired to like, tackle the environmental challenges of our times, like the Obama era like of hope.
Yeah.
And we're going to solve climate change. And like, there's a lot of opportunity to engage with like the real people in New York who are doing this work on the ground. And so it was a great time for me to like shift gears and get involved in something totally different. At the same time, I moved here and was like having so much fun being in New York. Started DJing, going to a lot of parties. Obviously, you were here. It was a super cool time to be living here. It was like more of a DIY streak then, and less of like a institutional framework for music and parties and stuff. So it was like you had this kind of like creative underground scene, which maybe we still have, I don't know, but I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know why I focused on what you said with Obama, because I remember that time. It was like, I felt so much hope. That's why I came to New York. I was like, wow, like, and then it's weird to like reflect and then see, Yeah, but so what did you study at the new school?
I was in an environmental studies program with like a concentration in sustainable design. It's kind of like buzzwordy. Basically, it's like environmental science and like supposed like, urban solutions to all of these crises that are coming at us. And that led me into the field of landscape architecture, which I then went and pursued an MLA. I got a master's of landscape architecture following that. Became a landscape architect because it felt like a very tangible way to shape the world in ways that were responsive and directive of like where we can go and where we should be. So I entered that field with a lot of hope as well, and like a lot of kind of energy to make stuff. And
Yeah. But yeah, that's fascinating. So when you like, what made you wanna go and do this master degree? Like, was it did you feel like it was you weren't still sure about the, you know, like the field where you wanted to work in? Or
well, I mean, interestingly, my dad is a landscape architect, and I grew up with him, and like he's an amazing role model of a landscape architect. He's like does great work, great design work. A lot of it is community-based work. A lot of it is work that you feel proud of living around, and tangibly like is a great addition to cities. So I had that as an understanding of like the power of what this could be, and in relation to what I was studying in school, which was like mostly about problems and like all these kind of like interconnected systems that were like destroying us. It offered me the idea of like how to create solutions that weren't just like policy based or you know. So it was a form of being creative where you can like, you know, draw your way out of this or build your way out of this. And obviously we're not getting out of anything, but that was sort of like my entry point. And it was also during, you know, I'd say a period within the profession of landscape architecture. There's like a lot of focus on ecological urbanism and like reshaping our cities to survive and to like thrive. And so it was the right moment in time for me to like get into that. I also work for this artist named Mary Miss, who's like she's a kind of seminal land artist of the last, you know, 50 years or something. And she kind of shifted her practice from doing like more avant-garde land art to doing more direct environmental work. And she was very inspiring for me working for her.
oh, nice. And was it shortly after when you graduated, you worked at a firm?
Yeah, so I went to graduate school. I somehow got into Harvard Graduate School of Design. Went there for 3 years, which was quite an experience. And that during that time, I would say, like I just to bring it back, like I basically like disengaged from everything else, like music for the most part.
Oh, wow.
And like I would like DJ parties at school and stuff, but it was such like an abrupt shift from the life that I had which was very much like I answer to no one. I go where I want to go. Honestly, like people like me for it. It was like working out. And then I went to this other environment where it was like very steeped in hierarchy and tradition and like professionalism, and like your whole future feels like on the line all the time. Like you say the wrong thing to someone or they're gonna, you know, you're not gonna get a job, you're not, that sort of thing. It was like a definitely no one with my background was like in that program. So it required like a shift in my behavior and my thinking and everything, but I rolled with it. I rolled with it right into like a career as a landscape architect. And I worked for 5 years at a company here in New York that is a pretty prominent landscape architecture firm. Does a lot of amazing projects. They're one of the top firms in the world, and really, really fascinating work. Is a very challenging work environment that leaving that was probably the best decision I've ever made. and my life has just continued to get better since then.
Nice.
I'm definitely like a big advocate for leaving your job, and I haven't really had a traditional job since then. But during that time, similar to when I was in the band, I like had objectives. Like I wanted to work on transformative urban projects, so I got to
have some peaks.
Yeah, like this is Pier 3 at Brooklyn Bridge Park, which was one of the first projects that I worked on. Brooklyn Bridge Park is like an iconic place at this point in New York landscape. This is a concept model for the forthcoming Obama Presidential Center in Chicago, which I worked on for many years. It's under construction now. A number of projects, not all at this scale. I designed gardens. I designed, some residential stuff. I designed a lot of playgrounds. Playgrounds sort of like became my focus at work. And I began to sort of specialize in play environments, which I am very happy about. And like, I think it's really cool because unlike a park like this, which is, you build something like this and it's to be considered permanent and like a part of the city's fabric in a way that needs to be kind of timeless and like respectably highbrow, and like it needs to be fine in all these ways. And like when you do a children's play environment, you can just be much more playful and like direct. Like you can make a monster or like, something that's like silly and like figurative that isn't all about being like, highbrow. Yeah. And so I love that. I found it like a fitting form of like expression within the profession for me. And I love getting inside the mind of like playing children who are, creating games and alternate realities with each other within these spaces. And like, it's just very cool. And now know a lot about playgrounds. I'm working on one right now in San Francisco that I'm working on with my dad.
Oh, nice.
It's in like a historic park in the city called Stern Grove. It's like a woodland area of the city. Excited about that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting. And like, do you have like one project that like you loved working on, or like that really impacted your life?
Yeah. I mean, there's two. Like one phase of Brooklyn Bridge Park it's called Pier 2 Uplands, like a pretty large parcel of the park was like my first like time that I was really like steering things. I can't take credit for the whole project in any way. Like, it takes a lot of people. And I was very much an employee of like various other people, but I felt I had agency to like guide that project. Nice. And then also this playground on the west side of Manhattan called Chelsea Waterside, which is like a very fun and small playground, but it was like quite a big deal for me. I was with it the whole way, and it's really cool to go visit and see like families and kids just going wild in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it's so interesting to see. Like, I feel like you know, like going back to like being in a band, like you were kind of like a leader. Like you have this, it's like you learned, like you know how to manage like a project that involves people. And you're like, it's very interesting to see, like, do you see like a parallel or like a relationship between what you've done in your band and as a landscape architect and as a DJ and as a...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't quite gotten there yet, but like it's the project I'm doing now, which is like I'm building a house, sort of has like distilled all of that for me into like a point of clarity where I see the connections of like all these other endeavors and how it feels very much part of the same project all of a sudden. Like, my role in all of these things is kind of about bringing materials or elements or people in relation to each other, and like designing those relationships, crafting like how things are going to interact over time.
Yeah.
So like when you have something, say it's a musical performer and you want them to play your festival, or it's a toilet in a new house, or a swing set or something in a playground, like everything that's surrounding that, how it hits the ground, how much time it takes, what time of night it is. All these things are like where I find my curiosity and like my impact being. And so I sort of see everything that I do as just kind of like aligning the world in a way that is going to be impactful, whether it's a physical project or like an event or a DJ set. Like I do this kind of same thing when I DJ, where I sort of like think through the music that I want to play. And I mean, I get maybe like a little obsessive with it, like how things are going to land where they are in relation to what comes before and after, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Then this is, it's interesting because like just like listening to you talk, it made me feel like there is a common I don't know how to explain that, but I feel like it's like, like you foresee the future, like when a project is done and you have to move on to the next one so that it can be as impactful as the previous one. Like, do you feel like you're intuitive in a way, like in the way you run projects? Like,
I'm open to like receiving the truth. I mean,
yeah,
like I effectively ended my career as a landscape architect in 2020. 2020. That was when the pandemic started, and I didn't want to do that anymore in that context. Like, I think all of the protests and the global pandemic itself, and just pushed me over the edge in terms of like the traditional work structure that I was living in, and it was not serving me. And so I got out of it. I quit at that point, and like it was a decisive moment to like end that project. And much similarly to with the band, it was like I did what I wanted to do here, which I have to say is a little strange, having like gone to graduate school and like set myself up for this lifelong career that can be very rewarding over decades as you like get better and better at it. Like I still have a long way to go if I want to like master that craft, but not sure that's going to happen because I've kind of like, as you said, decided that I'm doing other things now. At that time, when I had moved on from that, I actually kind of gave myself to psychedelics as a practice, as a way of life, mycology as an interest. And that provided for me for many years as well, in terms of my curiosity and like my needs, and continued to connect me musically with people as well.
Nice. Yeah. So when your DJ name is Baby Leo. So why Baby Leo?
I've always been called Baby Leo. I'm the younger brother. My brother called me that the first day I came home from the hospital. And like all of my San Francisco people that I grew up with, that's like what they call me when I go home.
Whoa, nice. So how does it feel like to, like be back in music with DJing and like revive that side of yourself? Like, because you were part of the music scene and you've experienced a lot of things that most DJ haven't experienced yet.
Honestly, I think it's a great place to be for me because I feel like there's a ton of, it's really hard to be aspiring DJ if you like really you know, it's hard to get the gigs, hard to get people to pay attention to you. It's hard to get like the clout that you want. And I don't care, because I kind of like got to do what I wanted to do in terms of like being on stage.
Yeah.
And so I'm not really looking for that as a DJ. I get to DJ seldomly. When I do, I try to come like, I come fully, and I want to make an impact, even if it's, you know, only going to be 2 or 3 times a year. And I love it because I do get this like outlet to essentially perform and like share what's been in my bag all year, and like the music that I love. But I also love that I'm not looking to it to provide for me financially, or to like make me who I am and like, you know, define who I am.
Yeah. And so what's like, so you have this, you're the co-founder of Dripping. How would you call it? Like a festival, collective or project? How would you call it?
So Dripping is first and foremost an annual festival. We're about to engage in our 2nd edition coming up this June. It's also an event series at Nowadays, and there's one of those in 2 weeks that I'm here. I'm going to perform. Nice. And my partner is the techno artist Relaxer, Daniel Martin McCormick, and he sort of brought me a skeleton of an idea of a new music festival that he wanted to bring to life, and proposed that I work on it with him. And I said yes. And then we spent literally 18 months, like talking every day about like what it was going to be. And then it happened, and it was pretty much what we had talked about.
Yeah, it was like so inspiring. It was so impactful. Like I have some videos I can play.
Yeah, so it's like, first and foremost, you know, it was a rave in the woods, which is the essence of what we wanted, but we also wanted to bring other ends of our musical interests to the experience, and like kind of broaden the understanding of what a rave could be. So yeah, we had you know, modern composers performing with ensembles. We had a crazy puppet show from this group Poncili Creation. They're performing at this upcoming Nowadays event as well. This Adele Girls clip, like there was a kind of lot of focus on live. You played yourself, which was really a gift.
Thanks.
And I think setting it up in this way, there was a kind of, I would say, educational component, or there was talks, and there was a lot of like recharging, relaxing, just feeling good, and being beautiful, lovely people together in the woods.
Yeah. It was like, I think I was really impressed at how, you know, seamless it was, and everything was really well organized. Like, how did you, like, what were your roles?
Well, it's worth saying that Daniel brings a huge amount of experience. He was the co-director of Sustain Release for like the first 6 years, and has a lot of experience in that respect. So not only just like his understanding of how things should go, but like a lot of practical contacts for people who know how to produce something like this and will want to work with us, you know, stage managers, sound system team, all that kind of stuff was like already in his contacts. So our roles, you know, I would say we did everything together in a kind of like strange partnership way, where like we just discuss everything all the time. And like, I'm not totally sure why he wanted me, having never produced an event like this, but I think it was a belief in my ability to like convene people, and then just like a kind of endorsement of my taste and my the types of things that I like, and a belief that other people might like want to like it too. So
Yeah.
a lot of what I did is like, you know, curation and like just dreaming, just literally talking through every aspect of how an experience was going to feel, what the flow of energy was going to be, how we're going to interrupt it sometimes, how we're going to like bring people somewhere they don't know that they need to go. And it's not all about challenging people, you know, you like give them what they want to.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth bringing it back 1 second to the psychedelics, because I feel like a lot of that for me is rooted in that relationship. So like I began basically living with the mushrooms and in every way. My life was kind of like about mushrooms for a number of years, and one thing that I did within that was like sit for people on deep mushroom trips and provide music. And so in a context like that, the musical journey is so powerful and conductive that you have to be really attuned to like what sound you're putting into the space.
Yeah.
And how present you are, and all of these things. You're, you know, engaging with people who are vulnerable or like, you know, have given you like a sense of control over the situation. So that, like doing that work, I would say has been super helpful for me in terms of like how we approach the festival, because I treat it with the same level of care. Also, like it's just also the case that a lot of people are using psychedelics and on a journey there as well. So
yeah, and also like I really felt the pacing of the festival was like there was a pace, but at the same time with like pauses in between, so you didn't feel like pressure to be anywhere. And this year you have like readings, right?
It's a pretty similar format to last year.
Yeah.
This is obviously the event poster. There's 2 stages of music, and then there's some outdoor programming like sunrise concert. There's readings. This year we have a party at the lake and a concert performance on the lake. It's, you know, it's not a 1-to-1, and I don't think we'll recreate what happened last year, but like it's just kind of honing the model a bit.
What were the challenges like last year?
I mean, we're in a part of rural New Jersey that has never had anything like this happen before. And so the biggest challenge, I would say, is making ourselves welcome there and being allowed to do this. There's no way in America to do this legitimately.
Yeah.
So like there's no permit that you can get that says you can make noise. It's literally like you can't get permission to do it. And among other things that we were not able to get permission to do, that is pretty basic. So the biggest challenges were just, you know, continuing to believe in it enough to like take the risk to do it, because there's so many things indicating that you shouldn't do something like this. And then the reward, you know, there's no real financial reward at the end of the day. And then there's just a lot of risk.
Yeah.
So like holding on to the project at its core and being like, this needs to happen, I'd say is like over that period of time is the real challenge. It's the same thing with design projects. Like, you know, you work with government agencies or communities or national standards and codes and stuff that all want to diminish what you want to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's an asset and can enhance it, but like it's something I learned from doing that work is like when you create something, you need to identify what is critical, what is the core and the soul of your work, and like be convicted to it. And you can be flexible around that, but like you have to persevere through a lot of things to put things out in the world, whether it's an event like this or a playground or whatever.
But what's like why you and Daniel were like, okay, we're doing a second season?
Okay. Why are we doing it again?
Yeah.
Honestly, such a rewarding feeling last year to just be there with everyone. I think is like extremely fun.
Yeah.
And like quite a release, like emotionally. I think for many of the attendees, but like particularly for me, just like to have this dream that you go so hard for and then like live it is like a kind of crazy experience.
Wow.
So I'm after that right now with this house that I'm building. It's like,
we have some photos.
Yeah. So I'm building a house in San Francisco that, I'm building it with my dad. This is a door that I've been building for the front door. Whoa. So it's a handmade house. We're building a lot of the stuff, and
you started
there's it right now as like of a couple weeks ago maybe. We started it in October when I got there.
Yeah.
And this was a garage growing up. This was the garage next door to my parents' house. And
did it have like a construction? Was it an open garage or like a...
It was like a shack. It was just like an unpermitted shack on grade. And so that got torn down. We excavated out a bottom floor and put in a foundation and built this house. And it's gone pretty well. It's taking everything I have for sure right now. But it in the same way that dripping like felt like a manifestation of my soul. It's starting to feel that way. Like every day, it's pretty hard work, and I'm feeling it. But I look at it at the end of the day, and I'm like just smiling. Yeah. Because I've been drawing this house, and like this is the first time I ever designed a structure.
Wow. So you designed everything. Like,
I mean, back and forth with my dad. So we, he's in California, and we sort of like sending drawings back and forth for years. Initially just as sort of like, it would be cool if we did this kind of thing. And now it has become what we're doing. And we've definitely given everything to it. So we're deeply in it.
Do you feel like, because it's a project with your dad as well, like he brought you closer, like it's like this memory that you're gonna cherish?
Of course. It's like a defining moment in both of our lives, I would say. And not to leave out the other people involved, like my mom as well, and my partner MC, like we're all living in this project right now, not literally inside of it, but it's a part of our daily reality, more so for myself and then my dad. But it's an amazing thing to do, like to have family that is healthy and creative and resourceful in this way. And like, in many ways, in so many ways, this is only possible because of my family. So it's a crazy blessing. I'm very grateful, like every day for all that.
Yeah, and it's also like what's your like schedule? Like for instance, like you wake up in the morning. What do you do? It ain't
some New York schedule. I mean, I'm working at 7 a.m. on the project every day, 7 days a week, and I work until it gets dark, and then I eat dinner with my family and go to bed. And that's like so different than how I lived just months ago here. And I'm glad that it's different. I'm not seeking to to replicate my life here in a different place. So if it I feel very supported in what I'm doing there by the whole world around me. Yeah.
What did you learn from this experience?
The experience of building?
Yeah.
Well, one thing that's cool, like I feel like when I would do these really complex projects at work, when I was employed, like it was conducted often with stress as like a major presence and sort of like fear, like fear of fucking up, fear of like getting sued, stress that some person you don't like is going to try to change it, or like someone's undermining you or whatever. In my case, it was always that like my maniac boss was going to do something erratic and it was going to like hurt me in some way. I would say in this case, one thing that I'm learning is like, you know, you don't have to work that way, and we don't. Like, we enjoy what we're doing. I feel proud of it. I feel like excited and energized by it. And like, it is complex. You have to be on it, and you have to be like, you can't let up, but it doesn't have to be painful and stressful, and like, you don't have to be blaming people around you and like that sort of thing. So that's like, I'd say one kind of like nice lesson that I get out of this. And I get a lot of that sometimes from my dad, who like, he can like manage that pretty well and be like, we're going forward. Oh, nice. Doesn't get too caught up. I don't know. I'm trying to learn more things about it because I would like to continue doing more. I don't know what comes next after this project. And it's kind of interesting, like going through this little biography of mine with you right now, because like, I'd say in most cases, I never knew what was going to come after, and yet it comes naturally. Yeah. And it comes fully, and like, I get to do it. And I just have like a faith that will continue for me, in ways that are like constantly allowing me to reinvent. And reinvent myself, but also like further the practice of who I am. Yeah.
But also I feel like maybe the power you have is that like you're very connected to your surrounding with like people and everything. So it doesn't, you know, like you embrace every change. You're not like, you know, like complaining about the new generation or anything. You know what I mean? It's like
Well, I'm not trying to live my life in a way where I have to complain about what's happening around me. I mean, I'm certainly not like happy about everything in the world, but from what I can control for myself, I mean, it comes with great privilege to live like happily and healthy, and like it's not easy for everyone, or possible for everyone, obviously, but it's not the outlook that I have. I do believe that like I reap what I sow. I try to put good things out, and I tend to get them back.
Yeah, it's so true. I really believe in karma, so I truly agree. And do you have like next week you have a show at Noah Days. Make sure to go. And then you have Dripping coming up soon. I'll make sure to include all of the links. But before, I have this like last question. Do you have any unrealized projects or like dreams?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wish I knew more clearly what they were, because I would go for it. I was just starting to say, it's hard to say what comes next. Yeah. And I'm sure that once it starts, it I'll have many more. In this interim space between being like employed and doing a music festival and stuff, I thought I wanted to design like crazy stage sets like scenery design stuff, because I felt that would be kind of a cool agglomeration of all the things I did, particularly in the playground design stuff. You get to do like really figurative stuff. So I was looking at like, you know, all these big EDM festivals and stuff like that and being like, man, it'd be really sick to make stuff like that actually. And then I was like looking at, it'd be cool to design a theme park. Like an amusement park. Obviously I'm really not interested in like corporate environments in that way. But the exercise seems cool. I would like to do something like, I would like to design something that is like fully bombastic. Like in the way that I like to DJ and like really kind of fuck with people a little bit. I would like to make spaces that do that as well. And the typologies that exist out there are some of the ones I just mentioned. I'm sure there are other ones, but kind of combine that spatial sensibility with the like this, you know, my style.
Honestly, I see that coming. Like it's like even when you see like Coachella, like there is so much you can do, and like I feel like the creativity is not pushed fully, you know, and there's so much room in like.
I don't know. I don't go to things like that, and I haven't really ever been at many things like that. But I just kind of thought that could be like a meeting point for some of my skills, and we'll see.
Nice.
It'll be hard for me to find my way back into like a more traditional form of employment. So we'll see.
We'll see. Well, thank you so much, Baby Leo, for being my guest today. And as I said, I'll make sure to include all of the links. So thank you. Bye.